welcome back to Well, That's Interesting. The only thing better than good news is weird good news edition. Today is episode 248, how covering cow poop with a tarp can cut 80% of methane emissions, and using earwax to screen for Parkinson's disease is now a thing. My friends, I don't know about you, but this week has been quite a year, and this year has been quite a century. And as for the last decade, what can I say? We've all aged as gracefully as we possibly could. From pandemics to right-wing extremism becoming normalized, the dismantling of research, democracy, checks and balances, to the dissolving of due process, one could feel pretty goddamn beat down. I'm writing these notes to this episode in mid-June, and by the time you hear this, who the fuck knows what's been added to that list, and as such, you're probably even more beat down than me right now. So, understandably, it's times like these when we forget how wonderful the world can be and how innovative humans are when using our collective forces for actual fucking good. So, let's try this. In the first half of the show, livestock emissions. Yeah, baby, I'm talking literal cow shit, aka manure and gastroenteric releases, aka farts. These account for roughly 32% of human-caused methane emissions. But don't worry. According to UNEP.org, agricultural methane doesn't only come from animals. Paddy rice cultivation does too. Flooded fields prevent oxygen from penetrating the soil, creating ideal conditions for methane-emitting bacteria. And this accounts for another 8% of human-linked emissions. So, what does this all mean? Well, as the site goes on to painfully say, methane is the primary contributor to the formation of ground-level ozone, a hazardous air pollutant and greenhouse gas, exposure to which causes 1 million premature deaths every year. In other words, methane is really effective at trapping heat in our atmosphere. Over a 20-year period alone, it's 80 times more potent at warming than carbon dioxide. Methane has accounted for roughly 30% of global warming since pre-industrial times and is proliferating faster than at any other time since record-keeping began in the 1980s. And I can see your face from here. Your reaction says, Jesus, Jill, I thought we were going to talk about good news. You're pressing the dagger even more so into my heart, you beautiful bitch. What is happening here? Well, if that's what you're thinking, stick with me. I don't have good news. I have great news. Since 2020, researchers have been conducting a wild experiment with a dairy farm in California, all in hopes to reduce livestock methane emissions. And guess what? After the clickety-clack calculations were made, the reduction in emissions was in the double digits. And that's not all. That methane didn't magically disappear. Oh, no. It was captured by the same experiment, and it was converted into energy for the farm to use, thus not only cutting pollution, but cutting costs. We will dive into the cow piles and the details of this experiment. We will learn how farmers turn toxic shit into a priceless resource. We will be amazed at the impact and its success. And we will go beyond the numbers and check out a real-life creamery that's taken this experiment and has full-on adopted the technique into its daily production, saving money and lives every year. It's fucking inspirational. Then after the break, if you're a long-time listener of the show, then you may just remember Joy and Les Milne of Perth, Scotland. We spoke about them way the fuck back during episode 110. They fell in love, married, got old together. It was your typical marriage until the 2010s, when Joy, around 60 years old at the time, noticed that her husband was changing. Quote, he had this musty, rather unpleasant smell, especially around his shoulders and the back of his neck, and his skin had definitely changed. End quote, she told the BBC. Stranger yet, the couple's friends and extended family, they didn't smell anything. Joy was alone in detecting and living with Les's new scent. Even Les was like, what the fuck are you talking about, honey? I'm fine. Well, if you happen to catch that episode, then you know Les wasn't fine. Over the next 12 years, Les's behavior changed too. Depression, mood swings, all things unexplainable, until they finally got a diagnosis. Again, a dozen years later. Parkinson's disease. To help cope, they joined a Parkinson's UK support group, and they attended regularly. And boy howdy, wouldn't you know it, the moment Joy stepped into the meeting room, it was flooded with the same scent as her husband. Joy, a fucking retired nurse, put two and two together. She could detect Parkinson's by scent. Thanks to Joy and her magnificent nostrils, sebum, an oily secretion from sebaceous glands under the skin connected to the endocrine system, can be used to test for Parkinson's within 3 minutes, with that test looking for certain biological markers. So you might be saying to yourself, well, shit, that did make my day. How could this get any better? Well, it can. Testing accuracy and ease just improved several-fold thanks to another secretion, this time from our ear holes. Researchers have just released the results of a new system that inexpensively screens for Parkinson's from the odors in a person's earwax. And you may be asking why? Why the fuck earwax? And what are they looking for? And how far along is this test exactly? All of that shall be revealed. And it's all good stuff. And we need it. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my greasy business goose. To begin, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and try not to wince as I take us back to the horrendously shitty year that was 2020. We're going to do our absolute best to ignore the disastrous, embarrassing handling of a pandemic in our modern times by focusing on a little experiment that maybe, just maybe, will change the state of California and eventually the world for the better. Join me, will you, with a hopeful Francesca Hopkins, an assistant professor of climate change and sustainability at the University of California, Riverside, and her team on a family-run dairy farm in Tulare County, a hot, dry region in the San Joaquin Valley that produces more milk than any other county in the United States. Now, for my fellow geographically challenged Americans who may be wondering where this is exactly and why we are surrounded by lactating cows, don't worry, I've got you. Everyone, please imagine California. Thank you. Point to the middle-ish of the West Coast, and there you'll find San Francisco. If you move your finger down and to the right, about 3 hours and 45 minutes, we'll be in Tulare, whose shape is something of a square, and in it you can find the world-famous Sequoia National Park and Tulare Lake, which was once the largest freshwater lake west of the Great Lakes, but has since been drained for agricultural development. Anyway, back to these lovely, lovely cows, whose ends are something of a problem. A specialized stomach system with 4 compartments, long story short, in one such chamber called rumen. A complex community of microorganisms calls home, including bacteria, fungi, and protozoa. Here these microbes have the goddamn time of their lives living in what's called an anaerobic fermentative environment, which is really just a fancy way of saying ain't no oxygen here, so they're free to thrive and break down all that tough plant fiber that cows consume by fermenting it. As they go to town, that fermentation produces various byproducts, including fatty acids that the cows use for energy, as well as hydrogen and carbon dioxide. And some other microbes are here for that party. Quote, one member of the rumen microbes are the methanogens. Although they account for only 1% of the microbes, they tend to get the most attention. These microbes combine the hydrogen and carbon dioxide molecules in the rumen to form methane, or CH4. Cows and other ruminant animals expel the methane via belching, at which point it enters the atmosphere and begins adding heat. End quote, from clear.ucdavis.edu. So, my friends, methane is released in the form of cow burps and farts, but also their poop. And boy howdy, it could really add up. For context, one cow produces approximately 12 tons of manure per year. I did the math, and that means they shit about 65 pounds per day. But don't worry, it gets poopier. Dairy cows, which are often larger, may produce around 82 pounds of manure per day for every 1,000 pounds of body weight. And when you have 3,000 to 3,400 milking cows on your farm, like the farm we're on right now, you have so much poo, it literally forms a lagoon. That lagoon very much acts like the rumen chamber. It forms an oxygen-free environment where methanogens party all day and night and release methane. Now, this is just one farm. And if that made you a little concerned, you're not alone. According to the team's study, 54% of dairy methane emissions are due to manure management, making these emissions the largest single source of CH4 in the state's inventory. I know this may be hard to believe, but this part may even be crazier. People are actually doing something about it. To help mitigate climate change, California passed Senate Bill 1383, whose goal is to reduce statewide dairy and livestock CH4 emissions by 40% below 2013 levels. And they want to do it by 2030. So they have 5 years to take a giant shitty scoop of methane out of the air. And you know what? It might just happen. Thanks to about $214 million in state funds to support construction of 131 dairy anaerobic digester projects in the San Joaquin Valley. And what the fuck is that? And what does that mean? Well, that's why we're here today, on this farm, with a hopeful Francesca, as one of these anaerobic digesters is being installed. Please, drop whatever bullshit you're holding right now and pick up your phone. Head on over to today's post on the old socials, and the first thing you're going to see is a flat tarp covering a sizable piece of land. Stick with me here. Yeah, that's a tarp. But if you want to get fancy, you could also call it a gas-tight membrane, ooh la la, and if you want to see it in action, just swipe. Yeah, there it is, inflated. And I bet you have some questions like, whoa, wait. Holy shit, for real, is that tarp covering a huge field of poo and capturing the methane? Is that what's going on here? If you had that thought, you are absolutely right. But, and big but here, there's more to it. As explained by the Strauss Family Creamery website, quote, twice a day, the barns are flushed clean with recycled water. Manure from the barn is also scraped by a tractor into a holding pond. From there, the manure goes through a separator which splits solids from liquids. The solids are composted, while the liquids are piped into a second pond covered with an enormous tarp. Under the tarp, the liquid manure is transformed by bacteria through a process of anaerobic digestion. The result of this sustainable practice is renewable energy in the form of methane gas, carbon dioxide, and a small amount of hydrogen sulfide. End quote. First, I need you to do me a solid and put a pin in the Strauss Family Creamery. We will get back to them. And second, you heard that right. These aptly named digesters work just like a rumen chamber, with the added goal of producing energy for us humans. The methane is sucked out from the poop tent and is either burned for electricity or purified to make renewable natural gas that can be distributed for use, like heating a home or even as a replacement for diesel in long-haul trucks. So now, you're probably thinking, Christ, Jill, shut the fuck up. Does this actually work? Does this thing reduce emissions and actually run stuff? Great questions. As reported by Jules Bernstein of news.ucr.edu, Francesca and the gang conducted mobile atmospheric measurements around the farm for a year before and a year after the digester system was completed in 2021. They collected hundreds of data points from a van equipped with precision gas sensors, and I'm sure that was totally not sus. So after all the clickety-clack calculations were made, compared and contrasted, what did they find? Drumroll, please. Thank you in the back. Before the digester was up and running, levels of methane around the farm shit pond averaged 28.6 parts per million. I'll say that again, 28.6 parts per million. And if that sounds like a lot, it is. The average level of methane in Earth's atmosphere currently measures around 1.9 parts per million. So, did the digester make an impact? Please, if you will, pick a number between 0 and 30. I'd like you to guess what the levels were after the digester was installed. Go ahead, between 0 and 30. Okay, are you ready? Once the digester was in place, that number dropped to 3.7 parts per million. Yes, from 28.6 to 3.7. That's about an 80% reduction rate. And yes, you are right to clap. Please, round of applause. Thank you. Now, the digester wasn't without its kinks and some setbacks. Right out of the gate, for example, researchers found some leaks in the system, but working with the digester's operator, a company called California Bioenergy, adjustments were made, and that sweet methane was captured. Also, if a working farm wants to install a digester and make it work, they have to do maintenance, periodic checks, and installation requires permits and funding. Even the smallest systems cost about $1 to $2 million. So it might not be possible for every dairy farm to obtain one. But here's some incredible news. Remember I mentioned California set aside $214 million in the state budget to support construction of 131 of these? Well, guess fucking what? They are all built. And if each of these farms maintains their systems and reports similar results, according to the team's additional clickety-clacks, with these dairy farms alone, 39% of the 40% target will be achieved. So it's looking good. And if you're still wondering if the methane can actually be used, unpin that pin for me, the one about the Strauss family creamery. Well, I did a little digging, and according to their website, they've had some version of a digester running since 2004. 2004. And since then, not only has it reduced methane emissions by more than 700 metric tons each year, which is the equivalent of eliminating annual greenhouse gas emissions from about 150 cars, the digester provides enough energy to power the entire fucking farm, which is around 50,000 square feet. So yeah, they work. I mean, who knew? It's cows, not alcohol, that's the cause of and solution to all of these problems. Shout out to Season 8, Episode 18 of The Simpsons. After the break, we are leaving cow holes for human ear holes and what's coming out of them. We will also be changing lives for the better. What a day we're having. Stay tuned.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, at the top of the show, you and I went down WTI memory lane and dusted off episode 110, where we learned of Joy Milne of Perth, Scotland, and her magnificent superhuman scent abilities. She can actually smell Parkinson's years before its debilitating effects appear. Turns out, the oily substance produced by sebaceous glands hugging hair follicles, called sebum, is actually altered by the progression of Parkinson's disease, or PD. This means its chemical signature contains elements not found in individuals without the disease. So we can test for these elements and make a faster diagnosis. And that is extremely important for a number of reasons. First, according to the Mayo Clinic, the cause of PD is unknown. But several factors seem to play a role, including genes, and this is rare unless a number of family members have had Parkinson's in the past. Environmental factors may also come into play, like exposure to certain toxins. One example is MPTP, a substance that can be found in illegal drugs and is sometimes sold as synthetic heroin. Other examples include pesticides and well water used for drinking. But, and big but here, no environmental factor has proved to be the cause. 2, as to what exactly is going on in the body, research has shown that neurons in the brain that produce the chemical messenger dopamine slowly break down. And that decreased dopamine leads to irregular brain activity that shows up in the form of movement problems that gradually get worse as the disease goes untreated. This may appear initially as a tremor, or a shaking in the hands, fingers, a foot, the jaw. This progresses into slower movements overall, making the most average thing like getting out of a chair, showering, or even blinking more of a chore. Then comes rigid muscles, poor posture and balance, changes in speech and writing. It's truly awful, and it results in equally terrible statistics. As reported by Julia Musto of The Independent, some 90,000 people are diagnosed with PD each year in the U.S. alone, and annual deaths have surged in recent decades to the tens of thousands. So the fact that there's a test out there that can diagnose someone with a quick swab to the skin is really miraculous. It's a massive improvement from the traditional methods that typically rely heavily on time-consuming clinical evaluations when time is of the essence, including subjective rating scales that assess motor symptoms and neural imaging procedures like MRI scans. This olfactory test is great, but it can be better. There is room for improvement. As so stated by the American Chemical Society's June press release regarding the study we're about to take a sniff ourselves, quote, when sebum on the skin is exposed to environmental factors like air pollution and humidity, its composition can be altered, making it an unreliable testing medium, end quote. So yes, once again, air pollution is fucking with us. Here, even with Parkinson's test results. So how could we circumvent this dilemma? If you said to yourself, well, the skin inside the ear canal is kept away from that kind of junk, so maybe, just maybe, if we can use that, we can use the scent of earwax instead. If you said that, you're not the only one. Join me, will you, at Zhejiang University School of Medicine in Hangzhou, China, where Hao Dong, Danhu Zhu, and colleagues from a number of departments focusing on analytical chemistry, biomedical science, and artificial intelligence got to thinking about the ear canal and its secretions, aka cerumen, aka earwax, a substance primarily composed of, you guessed it, sebum. Some other fun facts about this head goo include its purpose. It keeps the ear canal moist and prevents drying and itching, which in turn reduces the risk of irritation and infection. It also helps in keeping out dust, dirt, and other foreign particles, but not always insects and spiders, as we've learned on this show, but I digress. And because it's composed of sebum, this hidden crusty jewel could very well be the jackpot we're looking for. We just have to look for what researchers call volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, which only show up in PD patients. So, to identify these compounds, Dong and the gang swabbed the ear canals of 209 subjects, 108 of which were diagnosed with Parkinson's. From here, they analyzed the smears using gas chematography and mass spectrometry, which are really just fancy ways of saying they broke down the scent and light reflections of earwax on a molecular level. And I ask you, what did you do today with your time? Same thing? I thought so. Anyway, after all the gas and mass of the wax were clickety-clacked, what did the team find? Drumroll, please. Thank you again in the back. Quote, through rigorous data analysis, the researchers identified 4 volatile organic compounds, exhibiting statistically significant differences between the PD and non-PD groups. These compounds include, my God, I'm going to give this my best shot. Okay, here we go. Ethylbenzene, 4-ethyltoluene, pentanol, 2-pentadiesel-1, and 3-diazolane. Zolane. Nailed it. End quote from bioengineer.org. And I accept your applause. So Dong and the gang successfully found 4 compounds in PD patients. This meant they could move on to step number 2. Training an AI olfactory system with their earwax VOC data to create a brand new test. And guess the fuck what? The resulting AI-based screening model categorized people with and without PD with a staggering 94% accuracy. Again, using only earwax samples. 94%. If you're impressed, yes, you should be. It is a marvelous start. But again, there is room for improvement. As the Dong mentioned in the press release, quote, "This method is a small-scale, single-center experiment in China. The next step is to conduct further research at different stages of the disease, in multiple research centers, and among multiple ethnic groups, in order to determine whether this method has greater practical application value." End quote. So, everyone, get your holes ready. The future is looking a little brighter and waxier. Thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends all about cow shit. Bring it up while they're eating. Bring it up when they come back from a bathroom break. And just really don't drop the subject. Then talk about earwax. That's completely fine. And a brown thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you'll love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.